Outreach Consortium. This is a forum where people in recovery can come together. We are here to encourage and support individuals on their recovery journey by sharing our own experience, strength, and hope. Our meetings consist of daily readings, meditations, devotionals, and discussions. We ask that if you're sharing that you please follow the rules and guidelines of this page. All recovery paths are welcome. Please feel free to share, and if you have any comments, please leave them on the page, and I will address them. I'm trying to get back to my full screen here. Okay, so my name is Kelly Kirk, and I am a certified peer support specialist in Richmond County, North Carolina. And today I wanted to talk about addiction and what it is and what it does to the brain and how to start out in recovery, or some good ways to start out in recovery. So most people that are addicted started out using here and there. I know for me, I started when I was 11. I smoked pot the first time when I was 11. And, you do it here and there, and then pretty soon it's more and more. And, you want it more and more. And it's like the more you take it, the more you like the feeling, and you start liking it so much that you would rather be under the influence than not be under the influence. And it becomes like a habit, and you start looking for it. You have to have it to feel regular and normal, and you have to have it to function. And, that's when, when the drugs become a lifestyle for you, that's when the brain disease begins. The brain gets used to the reward of the drugs. Those are powerful chemicals, and that feel-good feeling that your brain feels, it's a reward. And when you don't take the drugs, then your brain doesn't reward that, and you feel bad, you feel sick, you feel down. So your brain rewards the brain when you take those chemicals into your system. And when you stop, the emotional results are really harsh and uncomfortable. So when you flood the brain with drugs, your brain adapts, and that's why you need more and more. Your brain is like, okay, well, you're putting all these feel-good chemicals in here. I guess we don't have to make our own feel-good chemicals anymore, since you're putting them in the brain artificially. And so then, your brain doesn't make as much dopamine and endorphins as it did before you started using the drugs. And pretty soon, you're full-blown addicted, and your brain is now impaired. Without the drugs, your brain is impaired. Your brain adapts to the drugs, and it needs more and more to feel any pleasure at all. That's kind of when the liking the drugs decreases and the wanting the drugs increases. So when you're in full-blown addiction, a lot of stuff is going on. You're having all these feelings of guilt and shame. You don't know why you can't stop using, but you keep using even though you're losing, your relationships, and you might lose a job or a house or all your money, and you're kicking yourself because you don't know why this is happening, and you're justifying things to yourself, and you're making excuses, and it's a mess. It's a mess. I need to see something. Sorry. So I was looking online today, and I was reading like the science on it, and it shows pictures of, the addict's brain, and then it shows pictures of a normal brain. And then it shows, of course, the addict's brain is like impaired. There's not as much areas lit up, and it's, it looks sick. And then it showed, after 1 month, and then after 18 months. After 1 month, the brain is still damaged, and impaired. And it takes, they said, an average of 18 months for the brain to get back to normal. So that means, if you stop abusing substances, you've got that 18 months to wait to feel normal again. And that's why a lot of people have a problem staying in recovery, because, you don't really understand how that is until you are an addict and, you're not taking the drugs anymore and you feel terrible and every day is a struggle just to get up, and you wish to God you could go back and make different choices, but you can't, you're stuck, and so it's really important at that point to make some big decisions. And the most important thing is to go get help. You cannot do it on your own. You cannot do it on your own. You really need to get some behavioral therapy. You need to see a counselor. And what I always recommend is, if you can go to treatment, go to treatment. Because in treatment, it's 30 days. Usually you can go there, you can concentrate and focus on yourself and focus on figuring out why you were using drugs in the first place. It's a safe, sheltered place where they're going to take care of you. They're going to make sure that you're doing the things you need to do to get started on the rest of your life the right way. And, I've been to rehab many times, and, when I look back on it now, it was really, really helpful to me. Even the times when I came out and relapsed again, I took all of that with me, and rehab is a really good experience. I highly recommend that if anyone out there is using, to definitely find out if there's a treatment place that you can go to. So also I was reading that there are certain drugs that scientists are realizing now do more damage to the brain than other drugs. For instance, ecstasy dramatically damages the brain, which I didn't realize that. I've done that, a lot of it, and so that explains some things to me. Also, cocaine, it says a person may never fully heal from abusing cocaine. That's another big one for me. That was like my favorite thing in the world, and I did boatloads of it, so I do have a lot of memory problems, and that's probably a big part of it. But the main takeaway, I think, is that addiction is a disease, and it can't be cured. It can only be managed, just like diabetes or something like that. Stephanie, hi Stephanie. She went to treatment for 45 days. I think the longest I ever went was for 30 days. I think I went the first time when I was 13, then I went when I was 17, and then I had a long period of time where I was doing pretty good until my 30s, and then I went like 4 more times, and the last time I went was 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, and that was the one that I really stuck with. And I decided at my age and everything, and after everything I had been through, that I wasn't going to go back to that. I had to figure out a way to not do that. And that's why I'm always talking about your thinking and changing your thinking and changing your habits. And because that's what I was not doing. I was not changing anything about myself except for stopping using, and that was my downfall every single time. Okay, so again, addiction cannot be cured, but it can be managed. I think a person has to really sit down and honestly look at yourself, and objectively, and you have to be honest with yourself, and do some deep diving into the way that you think about things and why you do the things you do. And like for me, I was like, where does my thinking style come from? Like, why do I assume certain things in certain situations, and should I be doing that? And just, if you can really think about how you function all day, your thought processes. You can kind of correct some things that are getting you into trouble, and you really have to clean the slate and start over and rethink everything, because obviously you were doing some things wrong. And so if you can, really take an honest look at yourself and take it easy on yourself. I mean, don't be hard on yourself. But if you think about, hi, Miss Karen, if you think about some of the things maybe that get you into trouble, like if it's your mouth or your attitude, um, or you have pride, or you take offense easy, or you get stressed out and filled with anxiety really easy. Those can all be triggers that, were causing you to use, it's important to just start out with a clean slate. And like for me, that's where God really came in, because I'm going to go religious here for a minute. So if that offends anybody, just know it right now. But for me, like, I was born again when I was like 7. I mean, I know I was young, but I knew what was happening. And so I always knew that I needed to get back to God. I always knew that that's what was missing for me. And I was trying to fill this hole in my soul by all these drugs that were making me temporarily feel good, and with drugs, it's never enough. That's the thing. You might feel good that very minute, but it's a demanding disease. It never ends, and it takes and takes from you, and you give so much to it, and until it just takes everything. And so if you don't find something that's going to make you happy inside and make you feel fulfilled, then you're not going to be able to stop. You have to figure out how you tick and figure out what you need to do to be happy without the drugs. And I know for me personally, I needed to have a good relationship with God and with Jesus. And, it's like a lot of people either like grow up being forced to go to church and they don't want to go to church when they get older because they were forced, or they see other people in church that are hypocrites and that's a turnoff, or where they have this image that God is like this harsh, strict being that's up there keeping score, and he, everything we do wrong, he wants to punish us and stuff. And that's not, in my mind, who he is. He is a loving God. He loves us. We're his children. Just like how we would feel if our children were doing bad, we would correct them when they need it, but we would still, when they needed a hug or something, we would still, of course, love them, and that's how I feel that God feels about us. And that's what the Bible says. He's not keeping score. And I won't stay on it too long, but the thing that I always come back to is that, when Jesus came, he didn't come to save the people that go to church every week and are like good, upstanding citizens. He came to, he came and he ate with the tax collectors, and he ate with the prostitutes and the sinners and the dirty street people. That's who he came for, the people that need help. And I feel like he wants us to lean on him. He wants us to trust him. And that's what I've really done with my life, is I stopped trying to control everything, and I just like gave up and gave myself over to God. And I mean, we really have very little control over our lives. I mean, we can control the small things like what time we leave and what we're going to wear, but as far as what's going to happen down the road, or we're going to get in a car accident or not, we don't have any control over that. And so it's like, and that's stuff that really stresses us out. So if you can just trust that God has got your back, and trust that that he loves you and he's going to take care of you no matter what, that takes a lot of pressure off a person. And that's something that's the core of my recovery. That's the center of everything. And I found that when I do trust God and do my best to obey him, he comes through for me every single time. It's like, I think I'm not going to have enough money for something. At the last minute, something happens and I have it. It's like, it's just awesome. Having a relationship with God or your higher power is an awesome part of recovery. So, there there's a general consensus that there's something greater than ourselves out there. And if you can hold on to that, that's a really good foundation to build your recovery on. So, I think, do some psychoanalysis, do some self-reflection, decide what changes you want to make within yourself, decide what needs to be changed and how you can change it and what steps you need to take to start working towards it. Um, let's say you have an anger problem or something like that, which a lot of people do have problems with anger. If you know you have an anger problem and you decide you're going to try to correct it, the next time somebody sets you off, remember that you're trying not to do that anymore. And just that realization right there is a big thing, because then you can kind of start to see where it is that you start going wrong. And if you can stop yourself before you get angry, that's the best thing to do. And so if you kind of know the things that you want to change about yourself, you can be keeping an eye out for it. And it's not going to happen overnight, but you can slowly start working towards being less anxious, or not feeling as sad as you used to. It's like a process. So, but knowing in the beginning the things that you want to change is going to help you when, as life happens and when these circumstances come up. I definitely recommend having a counselor. Behavioral therapy is awesome. Like, excuse me, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I did that for a long time. That really, really helped me. There's a lot of different therapies out there, and, they're online now. So you don't even have to leave your home with the virus. You can get treatment online. You can telemed with a counselor. You can start medicated assisted treatment online. That's another thing. If you're really bad addicted on drugs, one of the paths you could take would be to find a doctor that gives medicated assisted treatment, and maybe get on that for a while until you can get stabilized and then move off of that. Or you could join a 12-step meeting like NA or AA. They have excellent programs. Go to a counselor, go to treatment, go to detox. There's lots of options. All you have to do is just start Googling stuff, and you'll find your way. So pick a program or a path and stick to it. Set your mind that you're going to make these changes. You're going to change everything, because remember, you can't just change one thing. As you have to treat the whole person. You have your health, your social life, your family, your job. You might even have legal problems. There's addiction affects people so deeply that it's never just one thing that needs to be fixed. It's the whole person that needs to be fixed. So if you can work with someone, a professional, and make a plan, whether it's rehab or outpatient or medicated assisted treatment or 12-step programs, make a plan and then take baby steps, take it easy on yourself, and just work your program, do the best you can. Relapses are part of recovery. I think that these programs and stuff now are realizing that, and they're building that into the recovery programs. They know that relapses happen. It's all part of recovery. So if you do relapse, don't be hard on yourself. It happens. It's okay. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. The important thing is that you keep moving forward. As long as you're moving forward, you're not moving backwards. So, stopping drugs is just one part of a long, complex recovery process. Addiction has serious consequences. It disrupts your life, your health, your family, your well-being. And that's one of the reasons why I get upset that people, talk bad about drug addicts, because it's not, there's this huge misconception that drug addicts are like losers or weak-minded. They don't have any willpower, they're the street people. But really, we really need as a society to realize and acknowledge that addiction is not, a consequence of being a bad person. Addiction is something that happens to someone. Yes, that person dabbled in drugs in the beginning, but I promise you, they did not intend on getting addicted. So, that's why it's important that, we watch what we say and how we say it in the world, because people hear that and they pick up on it and they think that people with this legitimate medical brain disease are bad people, and they're not. And that causes people to feel ashamed, and they don't go get help, and they don't seek help because they don't want to be labeled, and, it's an insult to be called an alcoholic or a druggie, and it shouldn't be. I mean, people with diabetes have a disease too that they can't help, but, it can be treated. And that's the same with addiction. So it's like, I think about that a lot. People are, they've got the wrong idea, and that stops a lot of good people from going to get help. So, yeah, I mean, do your research, find help for sure, make a plan, take it easy on yourself, just go slow. It's not going to all work out perfect the first time. You have to kind of find out what works for you personally. And it's never going to be a complete process. It's never going to be over. People in recovery are always going to be in recovery, and they have to keep working at it. I mean, you hear about people that have like 20 years clean and then they relapse. It's because it's never over. It's always a risk, and you always have to watch yourself and keep on your toes and make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position to use. And you have to always be, humble and gracious and grateful, and you have to be willing to change and to look at yourself honestly and realize that we don't know everything, and that it does take a long time for our bodies and our brains to heal from addiction. And, like I've been in recovery for almost 6 years now, and I still have major memory problems. And, I mean, I know I'm a smart person, but sometimes I just totally blank out, and I know it's because of all the stuff I did, but that's okay because it's a process. So, I think that's about all I have for today, but I just mainly wanted to talk about addiction and what it does to the brain, and some things that need to be worked on in addition to just stopping using, and touch on stigma and encourage people to definitely seek treatment and make a plan for themselves, and, find their higher power and find something they can hold on to that they'll enjoy doing, because when the drugs are gone and the fun's over, you got to have something that you like doing, otherwise life's just going to be boring and dull, and that's not going to last for long with an addict. So if you can find something you like doing, even if it's something small, do it, and make sure you're planning out your time to where you're not go, go, go all the time. Make sure you're balancing yourself and eating good, getting enough sleep, taking care of yourself, and everything else will fall into place, with your family. If they've seen you in your addiction, and they don't trust you and things like that, all that stuff will work out in time. So you got to be patient, because it takes, like I said, at least 18 months for your brain to come back to normal at least. So I think that's all I have for today. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.